let's get started. It's our last presentation of the day. It's always fun to be outside and watch golf balls fly. We have a very special guest, born and raised in England, started playing golf at a young age, and he made his first hole-in-one at 8 years old. I thought that was pretty cool. He's been named a Best Young Teacher in America. He's a Golf Magazine Top 100 teacher. He's on the Best Teacher in the State of California list, Future Champions Golf Top 25 Elite Junior Coach and Master Coach, and presently the Director of Instruction at Madeiras Golf Academy. He has a special passion for developing and teaching young players, and his students have amassed over 70 wins on the AJGA over the past 10 years. Mr. Mayson has coached players that have won on the amateur level, collegiate level, PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, and internationally. May have one of the most diverse group of students. It was really fun. I mean, and all the golf swings are different as well. So to name just a few of the players that he's been helping, Scott Piercy, Brendan Steele, K.H. Lee, many LPGA Tour players, including major champions Yanni Sang, I.K. Kim, Araya Jutanagarn, Younglee Six, Sun Young Yu, and LPGA players Jenny Shin, Hee-Wan Han, Beatrice Ricari, Allison Lee, Maria Hernandez, Tiffany Joe, and several others. He recently had 3 players compete in the Olympics and helped coach the French team. So those were Araya Jutanagarn, Perrine Delacour, and Solheim Cup standout Matilda Castren. So going to be a lot of fun to hear from you today, Mr. Mayson. Thank you for being here. Please welcome Chris Mayson.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be in front of you today. There's so many faces in the crowd of people I've just grown up the last 15 years in my career, like respecting in San Diego and California. Just so amazing to have Jim McLean here this morning, and to be on the same docket as him is such an honor. If you're a young coach looking to me and be like, oh, I'd love to teach tour players, I wish I could share my information in a seminar. I've basically been working 70 hours a week for the last 15 years. And the other crucial thing is you've got to have an English accent. There's so many tour coaches now with English accents, so that's really key. I think when we have players come to us, it's important to know the journey that they've been on. And I think when we're talking through coaches' information as well, it's important to know the journey that the coaches have been on too, because everything that we've done has shaped us as coaches. I grew up in England. I grew up on a tiny golf course. It was 6,000 yards. It was built in the 1800s. It's really, really tight. We didn't have a driving range at all. It was just a tiny little practice ground. You'd take your own golf balls down there and shag your balls. Don't say shag your balls in England. It's not a good way to start. They'll take you straight to jail. Basically, my mates and I were just hitting the net, and then we'd go and play. 18 holes, bit of lunch, 18 holes again, just competing, practicing on the golf course. And there was no real range time. There was no technique work. We just figured out how to score. I was fortunate enough to get good enough to be on the English national team. And at the time, the number 1 and 2 players in the country in college here were Paul Casey and Luke Donald. So all these American coaches were coming over to England. I happened to be the captain, and I was the only one that wanted to come and play. So I got offered 25 different full rides from great places, Stanford, Duke, Tennessee, Northwestern, some really great spots. But foolishly, I'd been to Disney World in Florida. I figured all of America must be like Disney World. So I kind of went like this and chose Purdue and went to Purdue, middle of the Bible Belt, Indiana. It was freezing in the winter. But all of a sudden, I got my own driving range. And 2 Pete Dye golf courses on campus. We could walk to them. It was incredible facilities. I had a wonderful coach, Devin Browse, who really taught the mental game. But my game never really progressed. I was one of the best juniors in the world, and I just never was a great college player. I was all Big Ten and Big Ten freshman of the year, but I didn't ever achieve the heights that all the coaches thought I was going to get to. I turned pro, moved out to San Diego. I was here for about 24 hours and called my mom, and I'm like, I'm not coming home. I'm staying right here in San Diego. It's amazing. And I played a little bit in Europe, but with very little success. And I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? I just haven't practiced. I haven't worked on my technique. So I'm just going to go full technique. So just like all of you, I'm sure, I bought a little camcorder, and then I went down all the rabbit holes. I'm studying Search for the Perfect Swing, Golf Machine, YouTube had just come out. Remember the Konica Minolta Biz Hub? I'm like hours I'm looking at those slow-mo swings. And I went full down the technical rabbit hole trying to make myself better. And I ended up just getting worse. My swing was perfect, I had all the positions, I hit it dead straight, but when I missed it, went both ways. So I could shoot really low. I shot 60 twice, but my high scores were just too big in order to compete on that mini tour level and get to the Corn Ferry. And I had a very specific moment. We're playing my final mini tour event. We're at Tiburon in Naples. We're playing the Greg Norman course. Anyone played the Greg Norman course there? It is this narrow. And I'm doing a practice round, and I've lost all my golf balls by the 8th hole. So I say to my playing partners, I'm like, I'm done here. I'm like, I'm out of golf balls. I need to go work on it. So I go to the range, and on the way there, I see Joe, and Joe's like, hey, Chris, can you come take a look at my swing? And I'm like, oh, I'd love to take a look at your swing. Let's go. So I start helping him on his swing. Get done with him. David's like, hey, you mind having a look at mine? So I spent 4 hours on the driving range helping all my competitors get better, never even practiced myself. I'm on my way to shooting 90 the next day. And all I could think about was, I wonder how Joe's doing. I wonder how David's doing. And I thought to myself, I'm in the wrong business. I've turned myself into a coach. I haven't turned myself into a player. And I swore at that moment I would never let my players go down the same route that I went down. So keep that in mind as I'm going through my presentation today, because I might look technical in the stuff that you've seen. I don't think I'm a technical coach. Our goal as coaches is to make our players better. End of story. We're here in California. We've got 12 months. There's no time to dissect everything, put a rebuild in. I only work with tournament players. There's tournaments every week. They have to be better, and they have to be better immediately. It's our job as coaches to do that. I get frustrated saying, oh, we just got this rebuilding plan. The learning processes that go into building the neural pathways to develop new things is so difficult, it's almost impossible to do. Your job is to make them better right away. I had a great, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I hate reading books, but I like listening to podcasts. And I heard a great quote the other day. It was, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. I hadn't heard it before. I thought it was amazing. It turns out all my students have heard of it. But I'll say it again. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And your systems are your daily habits, right? What are you doing every day that makes you who you are, right? Our bodies are built a certain way. My body is like this because of how I work out and how I eat, right? Same with everybody else. You want to be ripped, you get in the gym. That's your daily habit. So you're trying to run these systems and processes within your daily life, within your students' daily life, in order to help them get much better. So I have very specific systems. It was very interesting listening to Dr. McCabe earlier today, because he was running through some stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to say all the same stuff this afternoon. But hopefully I can put it in more of a practical application for the coaches. So my systems, essentially, I've got 3 systems. It's the mental, technical, and then performance. Now, my background is in the mental side. So I did play, but I did my major in psychology at Purdue. I've nearly finished my master's in sports performance here in San Diego. And that's kind of where my passion is, right? I ruined myself, and I believe that I have all the tools in order to help anybody of any age, of any ability, because I can run technical with them, I can make them think better, and I can help them practice and perform better too. So that's where my career has gone. It's more into the mental side, it's more into the performance side, and I have these systems in order to help my students make it very clear for them. So let's talk mental. The mind is such a powerful thing. We control what comes into the mind, we control what stays in the mind. So therefore, you must choose wisely. We as coaches are choosing for our players. And it's important that you shove it down their throat as to what it is that you want them to remember. You have to break it down to them. It has to be obvious. It has to be not complicated. It has to be simple. You have to break it down and spell it out and give it to them and shove it down their throat and make sure they're doing it. The other thing that we're competing with here as coaches is attention, right? The players I'm working with have got devices now. No one can pay attention for more than 5 minutes. You need to make sure what you're giving them is so simple that they can attend to it. It can go into their mind, it can stay in their mind. It needs to be easy to process, it needs to be easy to practice. You need these systems in place. In terms of the attention, I've got the opportunity to work with Yanni Sang for about 4 years. Still probably the greatest honor to be. I've done some really cool things the last few years, but working with Yanni was just an amazing experience. She came to me 4 or 5 years ago. She's like, I got the driver yips. She's hitting the ball 30 feet in the air at slicing 40 yards. She's 8 down and 7 left with her driver. I said, Yanni, you don't have the driver yips. Your swing shit. And we can fix it. So we spend months and months and months like retooling and getting it back. And gosh, she started hitting it so incredible. She's such an amazing ball striker. I won't tell you the rest of the story. Didn't quite work out. The putting started to go. But she told me the story. We did this deep dive. She told me the story where she'd just come off her 11-win season. Isn't that amazing? We're looking at Tiger Woods this morning. She won 11 times in one season. She starts the next season. She wins the next 2. She goes to the 3rd event and she finishes 5th. She's telling me the story. She goes into the press room and the press room guy says, the journalist says, what happened last week? She said, what do you mean? She says, well, you finished 5th. She's like, felt like pretty good. Didn't think anything of it. She finished 9th that week, goes into the press room. Different journalist. Why are you in a slump? Maybe I am in a slump. Got to be careful what you pay attention to, right? Goes to the coach starts changing stuff. The rest is history. So I have these mental processes that are basically non-negotiable. My players have to do them. The only way I would let them not do it is if they came to me, like the Jutanagan sisters. They have Pierre and Lynn. If I can stay in my lane, I'll stay in my lane. Like if they're already doing some mental work, then I'll just step aside. But for all the other players, they have to do these things. So I have a 5-step mental process. None of this is genius. It's super simple. But I'm trying to direct my players into what it is that I want them to do. Okay? So 5 steps. Number 1, decide what you want. Number 2, visualize what you want. Number 3, feel what you want. Number 4, commit to what you want. And then number 5 is post-shot routine. In the post-shot routine, you're going to do 2 things. You're either going to gain confidence or you're going to learn from what you did. Growth mentality. Right? I'll say them again. Decide what you want, visualize what you want, feel what you want, commit to what you want. That's the hitting the ball part. Then number 5 is post-shot routine. In the post-shot routine, if they did what they wanted, I want them to tell them how good they are. God, I'm such a good 7-iron player. I'm an amazing driver of the ball. I'm such a great putter. Non-negotiable, these things. Trying to build their confidence. What is confidence? Confidence is just self-talk. That's all it is. We choose what goes into our mind. We choose what stays there. So choose wisely. I'm trying to pre-program their every single shot so they're talking to themselves in the correct way in order for them to either learn or gain confidence. It's non-negotiable. Yeah. Please welcome David Gazzolo, everybody. Been a student of mine for maybe like a 9-9. Been a student of mine for about 6 years. Started with me, what, junior year of, or senior year of UCR?
Yeah, junior year.
David is a 2-time California State Open champion. He's had his Conferee card a couple of years. He was qualified for the US Open at Shinnecock. He was first alternate, disappointingly, at Torrey this year. Terrific player. But this mental process that I'm telling you about, the mental process doesn't change whether we're working on the technical aspect or whether we're working on the performance aspect. So with David right now, we basically have got his swing down to one or two things, right? He's a great player. He tends to slide, too much side bend, gets the handle forward, hits a high righter. So everything we're trying to do is get him to rotate more on top of the ball. Strike gets better, the ball comes out a little bit straighter. Now within this mental process, if we're working on the technical aspect, the process stays the same. If we're working on the performance, it stays the same. So number one, decide what we want. Well, I want David to rotate on top of the ball, stay a little bit taller. That's our decision. If he does it properly, what are we going to see? Number two, visualize what you want. Should be a little straight to a little cut. Number three, feel what you want. I want him to rotate, stay up in posture, and then turn through a little bit more level. 4, he's going to commit to that on the ball. And then 5, what did we learn? Did he hit a good shot? If he did it properly, we know what the ball's going to do. It's going to come out straight with a little cut. If it doesn't, he's probably going to wipe it. So within that, he knows exactly what to do, exactly how to think, and he has an error detection afterwards in order to know whether he's done it correctly or whether he's done it wrong. So we'll run through a technical one here.
Okay.
So number one, decide what you want. It's a technical thing, so we're just going to run a rotational on top of the ball. Number two, visualize what you want. We're going to this yellow flag, so we should have visualized a straight to little cut. Number three, he's going to feel what he wants. Number 4, he's going to commit to that feeling on the ball. And then number 5, post-shot routine. So, ball didn't fade. What did he do? Must have side bend, flipped it, ball's turned over. So after that, it's like, okay, well, what did I learn? I didn't like it. I didn't like the shot. What did I learn? So then he needs to go back into the post-shot routine. This is what I want, right? So then I would have him come in here and do just a little impact drill. So we do this a lot. We try and get him to rotate in front. Beautiful. He's just feeling what he wants. Good. Commit to it on the ball. Much better. You're such a great player.
Thank you. It's the win.
So that would be a technical aspect, right? And I'll jump into technical a little bit more in a minute here. The performance aspect is exactly the same, right? Decide what you want. Okay, I want him to hit a 9-9 at the yellow flag. The yellow flag, I don't know, is 148 yards. Wind center right to left. I want him to hit it at the pin and then just let it drop to the left. Right? So number one, we decided what we wanted. Number two, visualize what you want. With the visualization aspect, there's two types of visualizers, in my opinion. There's the linear, who just see the flag and they can't see anything else. And then there's the top tracer guy who kind of, like a bubba, who's just kind of seeing it and peeling it away, right? I give my clients both options. Now in the visualization, what I want them to do, and you guys can do this now, is I want them to stare at the flag. So everybody stare at the yellow flag. I don't want any blinking. So you just stare at the yellow flag. I want a deep breath in through your nose, and then as you release out, your body should sink and get heavier, slowing it down. You should feel a little bit more relaxed, and the shoulders will get out of your neck. Right? One more deep breath at the yellow flag. Then if you look over at the hotel, and then you look over at the TV, and then you look over to the yellow flag, you should have gone back immediately, right? Energy forces, big believer in energy forces. So that's the visualization part. With the feeling is now different. I don't want him running technical. I just want him to run performance. So I want him to feel a 148 hold. That's it. Not, I gotta rotate, I gotta stay in posture, I gotta do it. Right? 148 hold. So show me that. There we go. And then number 4, he would commit to that feeling on the ball. Let's see that. Pretty darn good. Awesome. So that's mental. I'm not Dr. Brett McCabe. I'm not Alison Kurt. I'm not Rick Sessenhaus. But from what I've done is basically concisely put stuff into a very easy step system for my players to run through. Right? It's 5 steps. It's super easy. Anybody got a question on the mental stuff?
You say when we looked at the flag, keep your eyes open. What's that for? No blinking, I mean.
So what I'm trying to do is channel the energy forces of the player so that they can't see any other option of what it is that's going to happen.
Is there a time, like how long you should look without?
I want the routines to be pretty quick. So for me, it would be one breath, right? And then like that level, I run through it. If it's not my first lesson that I do it with them, because again, this is non-negotiable for me. It's my second lesson. And David would tell you, it's whenever he calls me, I'm like, how was your mental process, right? If the mental process is terrible, I don't care what the technique is, right? That's where I'm coming from, right? You have to be engaged into what it is that you want to happen. And I want my players asking themselves all the time, what do I want? Decide what you want, visualize what you want, feel what you want, commit to what you want. I want my players so engaged into what it is that they want to happen. The other stuff is whatever.
Question for him, do you do it on the golf course all the time?
Yeah. I'll forget though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like if I do play bad and call him and he asks me that question, there's sometimes, because I'll rate him like out of 5. Like how was the decision making? That was only like a 2 today and stuff like that. So I definitely forget.
When you do on the golf course when you play?
Sorry?
The non-blinking when you look at the
Oh yeah, I'll do that too, yeah.
Yeah. It's just my personal preference, but
No.
I have very, very specific preferences and stuff that my players, they must do. It's non-negotiable.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah.
I do rather the same thing, and a lot of times, well, he just explains that sometimes he forgets.
Yeah.
So I get a Sharpie, and I write the code on the golf grip. So every time the grip goes on, the glove goes on, you're reminded about it.
Nice.
A little help. Yeah,
Can I steal that?
done. That's why we're here.
Any other mental questions? Yeah.
Instructing a lot of junior golfers. I see it with a lot of high school golfers I work with, that they have a tough time traveling. You know, going from course to course, you know, they'll be playing great, and then they'll show up another course, and it's almost like they never played golf before, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, it almost kind of like it's not just them, it's, you know, a lot of times it's 3 or 4 of the guys on the same team doing the same thing from course to course. And, as far as the mental side of it, what do you like to see your players work on?
So the question was, when players are traveling from course to course, how do you mentally engage them to make sure that their game travels?
Right, yeah, just for a young person, you know, like helping, because they get down on themselves so fast, you know, after 3 or 4 holes if they're not playing well.
Sure.
That, you know, the unraveling, I guess, that kind of want to suit your...
Yeah, I mean, again, as coaches, what we're trying to do is give our students the tools that they need in order to perform at any stage, right? Under pressure, different golf courses, different winds. In Southern California, our kids, my kids now are 12 and 10, they're spoiled. Like, I'm freezing right now. It's so cold. What is it, 60 degrees? This is a really nice day in England in the summer. Not my style at all, but they don't practice in the wind. right? If it rains, most of them don't go and practice. They don't need to. I wouldn't. I'm not quite sure how to answer that question other than, like, we're trying, I am soft. We are trying to, I thought no one was going to heckle me today. We're trying to develop the tools for our kids at every single level, right? So a lot of, we'll get into the performance part in a bit. I would say that's more under the performance, and I think that will answer your question. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got your 5-point
Yeah.
system. Were there other factors like 0.6, 0.7, 0.8 that you just, oh, well, no, I can't go there, or how you arrived at that 5-point system?
Yeah. Again, what I'm giving you to do today is a very like baseline of my coaching, right? But when Brett said, hey, who has systems and processes? I'm like, yeah. Like, I shove it down my players' throats. They have to do it if they're going to be with me. Now, I would do, like, Faldo was my hero growing up, right? So he would always do the see, feel, do. Really simple. I think it's great. What I've tried to add in with this post-shot routine is golf's really freaking hard. And we're having a lot of mental health issues recently. And players are coming out every week. Bubba's came out, Caroline Masson came out this week. Hey, I'm having mental health issues. Right? This is something that's prevalent in our game. It's prevalent for the kids, right? The doc touched on it today. What I'm trying to do in that mental process in the number 5, that post-shot routine, is give them a tool to either be positive or stay neutral, right? And what I really want them to buy in, and this is really, really hard, I cannot get my PGA Tour guys to do this, but I'm trying to get them this growth mentality where they feel like even if they've hit a bad shot, if they learn from it, they're better than they were before that shot. So every single shot is an opportunity to get better, and I want them to like really embrace the suckville, right? Like that's why I kind of came up with what I did. If you just ask yourself in life, what do I want? It starts a myriad of questions going forward and answers that I think are very, very powerful. And that's why I start mine with decide what you want to happen. The rest of it falls in line pretty quickly after that. A lot of this stuff is very, very natural. I don't think you can. I don't think you can. I thought I was going to get this question later, but like, what's, no. Like, he said, do you think you can be too cocky or confident? Usually I get asked, what's the difference between my players, who are good players, right? Piercy and Steele, really good players, and Patrick Cantley. Okay. I haven't worked with Patrick Cantley. I don't know what's going on. Jamie's done an amazing job. I bet you it's his mind. And I bet you it's his cojones, right? So can you be too cocky? Maybe outwardly, right? But not inside. I don't think you can, right? One thing I didn't touch on with the mental game is when we're choosing our thoughts and we're choosing what goes in our mind, I'm a big believer that you can create your own reality, right? And I think if we created our own reality in golf and in life, be a lot more happy people, right? You can choose what goes in there. You can choose how you perceive yourself. And life really is just a perception of what's going on. And golf is a exclamation mark because it beats you up 95% of the time. So are we giving our players the opportunity and the tools in order to safeguard their mind from potential destruction? Are you choosing to pay attention to the fact that you've just finished first, fifth, ninth, going the wrong way? Is that something you should choose to pay attention to? I don't think so. I think it should be celebrated. So I'm trying to, in that mental process, build these processes in order to protect my players from potentially losing confidence, which can be done in a heartbeat. Yes, sir.
Quick question. So, like, when you talk about the commitment, like committing to the shot, That's just execution with full buy-in to whatever the previous two steps are. Is that what you mean?
Exactly right. Yeah. So in the feeling what you want, if everybody just closes their eyes, right? Everybody, I assume, plays golf here. So close your eyes and feel in your body a 50-yard slice. Everybody can do that, right? Open your eyes. 50-yard slice. It's easy to do, right? You don't have to get up there and be like, oh, here's my 50-yard slice. You can sit there and, oh God, that's awful. Right? What I'm trying to do in this process, whether it's running the technical or whether it's running the performance, is have them a feeling, and I'll get into this more with the technical aspect, have a feeling of this is the correct move, right? Everybody has tendencies. We're just working your way away from those tendencies, right? Especially at the elite level. So, yes, sir?
On the post-shot side, you had the confidence on one side. You went into that a little bit more. Could you explain a little bit more the second option off of a bad shot?
Yeah, so we're trying to, he was asking, explain more into the learning aspect of the post-shot routine. I don't expect my players to play, I do expect my players to play great all the time. But I know that's not reality. But in the learning aspect, I try and give all my players, and I'll touch on this in the technical part, an error detection, right? We're basically fixing for three things in golf, aren't we? Person slices it too much, they hook it too much, or the contact's bad. 90% of our lessons are fixing those three things, right? So in that learning part, it's like, well, Chris is trying to get me to do this so I don't hook it so much. He's trying to get me to rotate more on top, which will shift the plane more out. Well, that one just hooked. Well, I know why it hooked, and I know how to solve it. If a player knows those two things, they should never be unconfident, right? You've got to shove this down their throats. Now I'm getting in my technical. Number two, technical. In the technical, what's the problem? What's the solution? What's the drill to fix it? And then does the player understand ball flight laws in order to recognize it themselves? I'll say those again. Now we're in technical. We can move on. What's the problem? What's the solution? What's the drill to make it better? And then what does the ball flight do to know if you've done it well or not? Again, we're fixing for hook, we're fixing for slice, and we're fixing for contact. Obviously, there's more stuff from there. There's strike and shaping and flighting and all spin rates. But basically, 90% is fixing for those three things, right? So when I first started teaching, I would have 100 drills that I could, hey, try this and try that. And I used them all on myself and ruined me. Now I pride myself on basically doing 3 or 4 drills, right, to fix the slice, the hook, and the contact. And then in terms of what to look for in terms of ball flight, every first lesson I teach them ball flight laws. Again, not D-plane ball flight laws, simple ball flight laws. Number one, the ball's going to start with faces aimed at impact. Number two, the ball's going to curve depending on the face's relationship to the path. Super easy for them to understand. If it hooks, you did this. If you sliced, you did this. If it went straight, you did this. Right? Really, really simple ball flight laws. So they just have an understanding of what process we're going through in order to help them get better. Right? So, what's the problem? What's the solution? Do you have a drill to make it better? And then do they know whether they do it properly? So, with David, he would side bend in the sliding, the ball was going right. If he does it properly, he rotates on top, the ball is going to go straight, it's not going to go spinny into the right. Right? Told him what his problem is, told him what the solution is, gave him a drill. Usually you do the impact drill, and then I've given him recently a pretty cool drill, I think, where he tees it up like a driver. He hates this one. It's like, please don't ask me to do this one. So I'm trying to get him to keep his levels more. Obviously, if he dips, he's not going to make contact with the face. Beautiful. You're such a great player. So we're basically running, you guys are great coaches, you're basically running through these myriads of things to help your players. And that's what I do in the technical. Now, before I get any deeper in the technical, I do need to have a little bit of a rant here. I don't understand in our profession why we're doing all this body motion, external, ulnar, deviating. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why we're going down this path. It only makes it more complicated. If I have to shove the mental process down my people's throat and then tell them what external and ulnar and all that means as well, what are they paying attention to? I'm in charge of what they pay attention to. I don't want them asking what the meaning of this is. I just want them doing what it is that I want them to do. Just my opinion. So, is Jim McLean still here? God, he doesn't want to listen to me talk. Jeez. Golly. So I've had a couple of moments in my career where there have been like really defining moments of my career. One of them, and Jim and I have actually never even met, but one of them was with Jim. So I'm standing on the range A&A with IK Kim. I'm 28 years old, I think. It's a long time ago now. And IK's sitting in front of me, and to my right is David Ledbetter and Michelle Wee. To my left is Jim McLean and Lexi Thompson. And I'm standing there. I've made it. Frickin' made it. Ledbetter's over here, and Wee's just roasting these shots. They're just dead straight. You've never seen it. Ledbetter's on there. He's like, Michelle, your knee's got to go 2¼ inches around the corner in an anti-clockwise direction. I'm standing over here like, oh my God, do I need to know that? I'm out of my depth. I knew it. So I look over, and Lexi's hitting these 40-yard slices. Right? Big slices. And I look over, I'm like, oh, what's Jim going to say? Jim's over there, he's like, Lexi Thompson, I can't believe how good you're hitting it. If I could swing like that, I'd be on tour. And I'm standing back here and I'm like, oh my God, do I need to know that? But do I need to do this as well? It was incredible. Michelle, we missed the cut by 4. Lexi Thompson was 17, I think she finished second. What a moment. What a moment. Amazing coaching. You need to know when to do it. This is appropriate. This is amazing too. Don't get me wrong, you need to know it. But this was amazing too. You need to know when to say what it is that you need to say. And that is the genius of coaching. The second one was when Brendan Steele came to me 7 or 8 years ago. Brendan's grip is the worst grip you've ever seen in your entire life. I kid you not, it's like this. And the day before I'm going to teach him, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what to do with him. I hope he doesn't have hooks. He was hooking it. And I thought to myself, okay, here's my entire experience in 20 seconds here. I need to find out what the commonalities are between a Brendan Steele and a Jim Furyk, between a John Rahm and a Tiger Woods, and a Matt Kuchar and a Zach Johnson. If I can figure out what the similarities are between weak grip players with strong grip players, high arm players to low arm players, big rotators, flexing, extending. If I can figure out what the commonalities are, I've got the secret. Turns out Jim already gave you the secret this morning, so you don't need it from me. But it is, all I could come up with was that they were online from hip high through to hip high. They were able to repeat their swing and manage the face. That's it. That's all I could do. And it's been the most defining moment of my career and made everything exponentially much easier. You've got DJ, right? You've got Kucha. There's a big move right now between very weak grips and flex left wrists. I don't know if it's the future or it just so happens that you've got so many great players doing it right now. I know if you take Mrs. Abernathy and give her a weak grip, she ain't got a hope in hell. Does that mean it's right for her? I don't know. Probably not. So that's what I came with. Now, you're going to say, what are your preferences? Well, I do have preferences, but I'm not sure my preferences can be your preferences. You see, I am coming from a very privileged position. I've only just recently started taking on 11, 12-year-olds because that's how old my son is, and I thought it'd be cool for him to have some friends to hang out with. But basically, everybody that comes to me, they must be a tournament player, and they must have shot under par. Most of them have TPI trainers. Most of them have a team. Like, I'm trying to find the polish and the low-hanging fruit. My job is infinitely easier than your job, but can be infinitely more difficult because I have to get it right immediately. The players that I'm working with will know within 3 swings whether I'm full of crap or not. So here are my preferences. I like a very wide radius. I like a short body turn with a, big body turn with a short arm swing. There's a lot of stuff right now about big arm swings. My understanding and my experience is that when the arms get long, the body turns out, you stop and flip, goes both ways. Just my experience. So I like a big body turn, short arm swing. With the sequencing, I like the lead hand to pull the lead arm, to pull the lead shoulder, pull the lead that, lead hip, lead thigh, lead knee, all in order. On the downswing, it would be the exact opposite. I like a lateral and vertical shift down into the lead foot, get the spine axis in the right spot, and then rotate around. Just my preferences. You guys need to have your own. Any questions on technique?
As far as like your elite players, how many of them would you say you're teaching to draw the ball, and how many are you teaching to hit cuts?
Great question. He said, how many are drawing versus fading? I don't care what my players hit, but they must pick a shot. It's non-negotiable, just like the mental process, right? They must pick a shot. A lot of people will have tendencies, and I will try and work them away from those tendencies, right?
Is both allowed?
He said, is both allowed? I basically, again, systems and processes. My players have to pick a shot, and they must have a one-way miss. That's non-negotiable. It has to move one way. I don't care if they draw it, and I don't care if they fade it, but I need to know, it's one of the first things I'll ask, what shape do you want to hit? What's your big miss? When they're practicing, I'll have them work what I call a bandwidth. Now, all that really means is just a fancy name for a dispersion rate. The ball, I suppose if we're going at the yellow flag, like if he's hitting fades, I want the ball to start at the yellow flag and move right. I never, ever, ever want the ball going left. When Piercy hired me a year ago, he goes, my ball must fade. He says, if it goes straight, you and I have got a big problem. He says, if it draws, you're fired. That's his system. That's his system. And if you watch him hit it, my God, he hits it good. And it doesn't really ever draw. Can you imagine how easy that would be to aim as a caddy? If you knew your ball was going straight at the yellow or moving right? So I'm trying to have the players understand this bandwidth that's created for them and have them track and pinpoint that. Now, David's got a TrackMan, so he's very fortunate. Most players don't. So what I would have them do is just basically draw a line and then pop a dot wherever their golf ball went, right? Just so they can start seeing what kind of pattern they've got, right? But they must move it one way. The other thing, to your point, is I want my players to be able to move it both ways. I want them to have one specific miss where the ball never misses one way, and they must be able to move it both ways. Now we're starting to move more into the performance aspect. Any other questions on technique? Yes, sir. I said, why don't I like a straight shot? Well, when I was playing, I made my swing perfect, and the ball went perfectly straight. And when I played well, I played really well. And when I played badly, I played terrible. Because if the path is straight and the face is straight, the ball's going straight. But if the path is straight and the face is left, the ball starts left and goes left. If the path is straight and the face is right, the ball starts right and goes right. Now I've cut my fairway in half. And I'm aiming at a pin, I don't know if it's going to go left or right. So trying to have my players really get dialed in as to what it is that they want, what shape do they want to hit, where do they not want to miss. The game becomes pretty easy then. And the players that I'm dealing with, it's not about playing amazing for one round. They've got to play well for 4 rounds. They've got to put 72 holes together. Then it becomes less about how many birdies you're making, more about like how many doubles you're avoiding. So that's why I don't like straight shot. Now, you'll see, I mean, even with David here, I'll get him hit a lot more shots, and I'll show up in a minute. But like the ball's coming out pretty straight, right? But we're just looking at the TrackMan and seeing that the spin axis is moving one way. But the ball's looking pretty straight. The tour players, it looks very, very straight, but we know it's not going to go one way. Yeah. So,
Since the equipment affects ball flight and body motion, are you taking this into account? And like TrackMan, well, any machine doesn't measure the face plane or the lie angle. So the ball flight laws are still rather incomplete because they need to add that part, which is not measurable on a machine. But do you assume these really good players already have perfect equipment, or does that part of your program do?
the question was, do they have perfect equipment? I don't have a fitting bay or anything at my golf course. Again, very privileged. 80% of the players that I work with already have a club sponsor. Now, this is probably where I fail as a coach, in that I assume that the stuff's fit properly for them. That's an assumption, right? Probably a pretty bad assumption on my standpoint. I would love if we had a performance center at Madeiras and I would have my own fitting guy, right? And it's one of those things I would check immediately, along with the body. But on your point there, the drivers, in my opinion, that they're starting to make are so low spin, most of my players are starting to move to a fade. Just the only way to keep the ball up in the air. So you watch the guys on tour, there's very, very few that are starting to hit draws or do hit draws. Most of it's aim left, hit as hard as I can, see if I can keep it up in the air and get it to move to the right. Again, that's just what I'm seeing out there.
With a lot of your juniors, especially where I grew up in Ireland, we're taught to draw the ball because of the wind. And then when I come here, I see a lot more people that teach more of the fade type. If you get a junior, do you try to get them more to faded, or would you be more draw biased?
That's a great question. He was asking, with a junior, would you be more draw or fade biased? I'm of the opinion that when you're teaching someone, you should get them to draw it first. That's just my opinion. Like, most good players have gone to a draw, started hitting big blocks and hooks, and be like, "Ooh, I think I'll go to the fade," right? So I would always, especially with the juniors, move towards a draw bias first, see how they can handle the speed, get them smashing it as hard as they can, and then if you need to move them to a fade, then I would do that probably after puberty. Yeah. Everybody good? Okay. So we've run over the mental, done the technical. The third part is the performance. So at this point, they should know exactly how I want them to think. They should know exactly what their problem is, solution is, drill, ball flight laws in order to get better. They should be practicing on their own in order to get better. And then we come to what I believe is the real difference maker that just almost never gets talked about in our industry, which is skill development. These players that are at the top are just so much more skilled than the other people. But we don't teach skill development, which is just bonkers to me. I've been teaching a kid called Ricky Castillo since he was 12 years old, been about 8 years now. Ricky is, I think, a sophomore or junior at University of Florida. He was the #1 junior in the country, #1 amateur in the world, just went 4-0 in the Walker Cup. Amazing player. Came for his first lesson, and I'm teaching his brother, Derek, really good player too. And Ricky's chipping down on the short game area at Madeiras, and there's some trees everywhere. And Ricky would come in and be like, little zipper, 1 hop and stop, high floaty, no spin. Then he'd get behind the tree and he'd be like, whack it off a branch, whack it off the tree trunk, under the tree, over the tree. And I'm looking at this kid and I'm like, God, that's unbelievable. The stuff he was doing was just incredible. But what he's done is educating his hands. He's developing skills. He's seeing different shots. No one taught him to do it. He's just done it on his own. I wish I could take credit for his great play. I cannot take credit for his great play. He was amazingly skilled when he came to me. Just like Jim was saying this morning, he's got a big chicken wing left elbow here. Not very pretty at all. In fact, my top players, Piercy, Steele, Castillo, Eri Jatanagan, probably the worst looking form swings that I teach. Most highly skilled players. So now we're talking about development of the skills. Now this doesn't have to be complicated. So every warm up, I have my players do a little leapfrog. Maybe check on do we have a yardage on this?
Sure.
Super simple. It's the first thing they always do. All I'm trying to do is gauge their brain and warm up their body. So every single shot that they hit is going to count. So all David's going to do is just pitch one here at 5 or 6 yards, and then I want the next one a little bit further, and the next one a little bit further, and the next one, and he's just going to keep going up. Super simple. Do this on putting. It's not complicated at all. Who's seen Tiger Woods hit the ball in person on the range? Quite a lot. Is it the best you've ever seen? Yeah, it's the best I've ever seen. It's unbelievable. But what Tiger does that I've only seen one other person ever do is he hits to the pins. He'd go at the orange and he'd go through his 9 ball flights. We all know what they are. Then he'd go to the yellow, then he goes to the red, then he goes to the purple. And every single shot goes to the pin. It still mind boggles me how he can hit a high cut the same as a low draw and make it come out the right number. But what's he doing? He's developing the skill and doing the exact skills that he's going to need when he gets to the golf course. Changing flights, he's changing shapes, he's changing yardages, right? And he's doing it in the practice setting. He's the only player I've ever seen do it, and he's probably the best player of all time. So I try and encourage my players to do it, but guess what everybody does? Pop alignment tool down, I get my 7 iron out, do my full swing, right? We all do it. The only other person I've ever seen do it is Rory McIlroy. So 2 pretty good examples of skill development. They're not working swing, they're literally hitting shots and changing everything on the range. So other skills, shaping shots. Actually, before we get into that, I do teach just a basic clock system. You're not going to learn anything there. But all my players must have a clock system, 9 to 3, 10 to 2 full swing. You've all heard of the Pearl system. Then from there, what I'll do is I'll run like a more advanced system, which would be 9 to 2, and then a 9 to full, and then a 10 o'clock to full, and a 10 o'clock to 2. So they'll have different numbers for all the clocks, but then they'll also have different shapes and spin rates for the in-between clocks as well. So maybe give me a 9 to 3. Good, and then give me a 9 to 2. and then a 9 to full. Okay, so I'm not looking at the board here, but different spin rates, different carry numbers for different levels of clocks. And then there would be a super advanced, which is basically gripping in the middle of the grip, doing exactly the same thing. So basically they'd have 12 numbers with all the wedges, then they'd do an advanced one, which would add another, I think, 4 to each, another 4 numbers, and then they'd go grip down, which would be another 16 numbers. So it'd be a lot of numbers. Yeah.
You change ball positions with wedges?
For me, obviously, we're trying to bring the spin loft down, so I like the ball position just in the middle. Like, I would just leave it in the middle. Ball position, again, is going to get roasted for this, I'm sure. No one asked me a question on ball position. Here's my opinion on ball position. In my opinion, I have my players have it about 3 to 4 inches inside their lead heel, and then the only thing they're doing is moving their trail foot. So if they're going wedges, it looks like it's middle to back. 7-iron looks like it's just forward to center. 4-iron looks like it's forward. 3-wood's way forward, and then driver off the left heel. So obviously with the wedges, we don't want the club coming in too steep because it gets the spin loft going berserk. So I like to keep it middle and then have them come in shallow and feel like they're hitting a very low hook. Okay, shaping shots. Now, the shaping shots thing I think is fascinating. I've probably asked 10 different tour players how they shape their shots, and I've got 10 different answers. So, is Jamie still here? No one wants to listen to my presentation. This is unbelievable. Rick Sessenhaus. How does Colin shape his shots?
He's a very creative player, first off. There's slight adjustments at setup. We work on some exit positions that change. So higher the hands, more fade biased, a little bit lower here would be more draw biased. But it's very, very basic, but he sees the picture and he reacts to a picture.
Yeah. I asked Keegan Bradley how he hits fades and draws. He says, I just think draw. So Keegan, how am I going to teach that? No help. I basically teach 2 ways of shaping shots. The first one's just the basic, like I would have him as he hit a draw. I just have him aim right and close the face. Obviously, the more the feet are aimed right, the more the face is going to be shut and the bigger the shape's going to be. I found that adds typically around about 4 yards to a normal shot. See it fade the same way. Obviously, normal swing. This is the easiest one for the amateurs and the juniors because they're not changing their golf swing. They're just changing the setup. With the tour pros, their circle starts to get so good that you can start moving ball position, which I think is more what Tiger would do. So let's see a ball back draw. The ball back draw is perfect for a back left pin. Player can aim actually at the pin, and if they miss it, it's usually just a little bit of a push. Ball flight comes down and then turns over. If it goes a little extra, it's going to get to the back left pin. And then for the front right pin, I would have them just move ball forward. Obviously, they hit it later in the arc. Got a little more added loft. Ball should start left and cut back. So front right pin, ball forward, back left pin, ball back. Let's see if ball forward fade. This one, in my experience, when we've done this with my tour players, usually takes off about 5 yards. God, he's good, isn't he? Look at that. But you can see the difference in the flight and the difference in the shape too. So the starting line is good because the ball's starting now more towards the middle of the green and moving to the pin. As opposed to when you're setting up for this stuff, it's like it's starting away from the green and then moving back. So, Mr. Mulligan. How does Patrick Cantley shape shots?
I was just talking to Shar about it while you were talking. Sorry to interrupt you. I love bomb draw with kids, you know, and everybody that we brought up kind of the same way as you. We do bomb draws and then just orthodox them and Patrick in his warm-up, he'll hit 43 golf balls, sometimes 45, and it's cold. 40 a lot of times, 35 at the end of the year, and he hits 30 cuts, of which 15 of them are slices, and then at the end he gets one draw with each club as he goes through it, and he can fall out of the bed into the draw, and we just kind of have narrowed him out that way. So
I think that's a really great point. Is we're basically working away from a player's tendency. That's all you're doing, right? In my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion, people's tendencies are how they generate speed, right? So Tiger gets in trouble because he's got the squat and pushes up and the handle gets up high. Phil gets really, really long, pulls down and gets narrow and has to flip it. Like, they're just trying to generate a lot of speed, and that's where their tendencies are. So you're basically trying to work away from those tendencies.
I think since you've been doing this, and I know too, the ball goes straighter than it used to, for sure.
Yeah.
I can think back, I haven't played golf in a long time when it mattered, but I curved my ball a lot, and it didn't seem like it was curving that much. You don't see the ball curve like that anymore. Like the ball just kind of going up and falling a little bit. You see a lot of shots that are draw fades, right?
Yeah.
It looks like they're going to go left, and that looks like they're going to go right, and then they went like that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Jamie was just saying how straight the ball goes now, and it's very, very true. Comes back to a point on equipment. So I have all my players have plans, right? So there's a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. And I got this off Brendan Steele. Obviously, I spent a lot of time with Brendan, but he doesn't know it, but he's a bit of a genius. He would basically have plan A, which would be like, my swing feels incredible, and it's just going dead straight, and I'm just going to hit dead straight shots all day. Plan B would be, my swing doesn't feel that great, but it's kind of moving in the right direction. It's in the same direction. It's like it's moving in a cut, and I'll just aim for the cut the whole day. Plan C would be, I don't really feel like there's a consistent shot, so I'm going to start aiming for draws and fades. So he'll shape it on purpose. And then plan D, he's got this lean left where he just stays on the left, and he hits a steep cut, and it just starts out in line and moves right. With all four plans, he can shoot in the 60s, which I think is incredible. So obviously the guy's on tour, and he's been on tour for 12, 13 years, but I want my players to have those fail-safes, so to speak, and then they'll run through those in their warm-up to know what they've got and what they don't have that day. So if they're for David, for instance, sometimes he comes and he's just ripping a draw, right? And he hits a really nice draw. If he's just hitting the draw and the fade's is going left as well, like, we'll just be like, just play the draw, right? It's okay, right? You just got to get a great score with what you've got. But I do like my players to have basically 3 shots off the tee, right? Let's see some drivers. Everyone wants to see a drive. David's a very long player. He's actually lost a little bit of speed, but we've had him up at 128, 129 before. Right now, he's cruising, what, 121?
Yeah, around there.
Yeah. So I would basically have them hit 3 shots. We'll see if he can do it. The first one is just as smooth and normal. Again, like, we're looking for the ball to start on line and move right for him. God, he's making me look good today, isn't he? The second one would basically just be a bomb, right? It's wide open. It's like there's a benefit to him. A little high there, isn't it? This would just be a bomb. So it's wide open, par 5. He's just letting loose. Big cut. And then the third one is what I call a second serve. So anyone play tennis? Right? First serve, boom, going for the win. Second serve, got to be in, right? Got to get in the box. So this is the second serve. Usually I'd have him tee it down. Like basically I would want the entire golf ball underneath the driver head when it sets up. That's a little high for my liking, but you do what you want. Man, is that nice. You're such a great driver of the ball. So basically, they've got different options off the tee so that if shit hits the fan, it's like, I got my second serve, I've got a 3-wood, I've got a long iron. I can play with what I've got today, even if it's plan D. And then the last thing we'll go through is trajectory control. 6-9, 5-9, whatever you want. So I was having a conversation with Keegan Bradley. I am very fortunate to spend a lot of time with Keegan, never coached him. But he's Brendan's best friend. So we do dinners together, we do practice around, do everything together. The Tweedledum and Tweedledee out there. And we were talking the other day about spin rates and controlling different windows. It was so interesting listening to him. He's a brilliant practicer. But let's see, you go low, medium, high. He would say, depending on the mile an hour of wind into your face, the different trajectory is going to change the different distance. So he was saying, like I would be like, okay, this is a year ago before I knew this. I would say, okay, if I'm caddying for someone, let's decide what we want. That's the yardage, right? So okay, it's 175, but we're playing it into the wind. Wind's hurting at 10, we'll play at 185. And Keegan's point was, well, you can't just put a number on it because you don't know what window you're going to hit it in. If you hit it in a lower window, then it's going to go through the wind, and therefore the number's not 175, or not 185, it's probably closer to 179. If you move it up to the middle window, then the 175 becomes a 185, but if you move it up into the high windows, like 75 could get up to 95. So it's like he's using the trajectory and the different spins in order to create different numbers. And I think that's really, really important to understand is you're not just hitting certain shots, right? You've got to get different numbers. He also told me a story of playing with Tiger when he won Zozo, I think it was 2 years ago. And he said he'd never seen Tiger so nervous. And all Tiger could do that day was hit big slices. And they get to the 17th hole, he's got a 2-shot lead. The pin's back left, and he says, Chris, I'm telling you, aim 10 yards in the water. 10 yards in the water. Hit it over the water, slice it back to like 10 feet. And he's like, that's all he had that day, and he knew he could get to his number that way. So even though it's the wrong shot, if you're getting to your number, maybe it's the right shot. I'm sure I forgot a million things, but any questions on performance?
Yeah, you said you had 3 or 4 things you kind of fall back to, drill-wise.
Yeah. So that's more in the technical. So basically, I have a go-to drill. Take your setup. This is trail foot back. So I'd move the left foot up a little bit, right foot back. This helps with rotation. I would have them stay basically on top of the golf ball, so it would be a single axis, very much like a stack and tilt. I'm not a stack and tilt teacher. But then from there, he's just basically going to rotate his body. So it helps with body rotation. You can hit. It helps with creating the right hand depth. Helps with not hitting a slice. Like that's probably my go-to for almost everything. No, that's right. It's my go-to for a majority of things. Like I love that drill, because then they just move the foot back in, and it's like, okay, turn deep, shift it forward, and then every incentive is for them to rotate. So all we're trying to do is incentivize the player to get into basically a single axis point in order for them to rotate. Right? Now, obviously, if they're really extending or the arms are out, like there's no incentive for them to rotate. So I love that drill. The other one I would do if they're having problems with the backswing is have them basically just run a 9 o'clock set. You see that? We've done this with him too. So basically he's just going lead arm parallel, clubs up in front, and then he'd just turn and hit from there.
Take it back.
Yeah, take it back a little further. Just so they can get an appreciation for where the club should be on the backswing.
In that 9 o'clock drill, how deep do you want the hands?
Again, like I want a lot of width and quite a bit of depth. So yeah, it would be right in front of the chest, yeah. Jong Lee 6, I worked with her for a year. She won the US Open. She would say, she's like, a drill's only good if it works. Think about that in a minute. And I was like, it's really smart, but it's true, right? Like we have to give the players a drill that's going to change their tendency, right? And the bigger the exaggeration for the tendency, the better the results are going to be, because we're trying to move them as far away from the tendency as we can. The last one I like is basically putting the club on the trail shoulder, huge backswing, and then pushing the arms away. Gets the feeling of where they should be. He's never done this, you can see. Pretty good though. No. And then, just like you guys, I've got a myriad of other fixes, but I would say those three are kind of like my go-tos. Yeah. Yes, sir.
If the player has a good warm-up, but on the course, let's say you start overdrawing it, do you want them to try to fix that or just go with that?
Great question. So he said they have a great warm-up and then the ball starts to overdraw. Do you want them to fix it or go with it? My preference would be for them to go with it. Again, it comes back to the mental processes, which we just started in with, which is in the post-shot routine, and you see it overdraw. Is that their tendency? Well, what's working away from their tendency? Right? This is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want. If they get out on the next shot and be like, yeah, the feeling's so clear and so obvious in my body, this is what I want to happen, and then it overdraws, then they should play that draw. Because it doesn't matter if you're a Furyk. If I do this and it slices 20 yards every time, and I know that this produces a 20-yard slice, I think I could play some pretty good golf with that. I know where the ball's going. And it gets so overlooked, doesn't it? When we teach, it's like, can they repeat the shot? If they can repeat the shot, whether they like the shot or not, you can shoot a good score with that shot. So again, it's like, this is what I want to feel. I've got a very specific feeling. Is that feeling producing a consistent ball flight? And if it is, then go with it. Don't try and fix it on the course.
Do you work on that later on the range? Thought they wanted all day, but it worked out for them.
Yeah. So I've been fortunate enough to caddy a lot for Brendan and then IK Kim. IK won the British Open, I think, in 2017. More famous probably for a missed putt, unfortunately, but she's had an amazing career, and I've caddied for her probably 5 to 10 times. We're at the British Open in Carnoustie playing with Laura Davies and Kari Webb. I was so excited because I grew up watching those two players. And we're getting out onto the 6th hole and they're all playing rubbish. And IK's hitting, it's probably a 30-foot push. She don't like it at all. She's bitching at me, she's in my ear the whole time, freaking 30-foot push. But we get up on 7 and it's par 3, I think, and I see her aim in the bunker. The pin's left, I see her aim in the bunker and she just pushed it 10 feet right at the pin. Right? She aims 20 feet left of the pin, pushes at 30 feet, goes 10 feet right of the pin. The rest of the round, she just starts aiming left and pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. I think she shot 70, C game, right? She's got a plan C. Straight to the range. It's a damn golf swing. My fault, it's my fault. So then we had to fix the push, so yeah. So again, obviously, Brett was talking this morning about trying to get to plan A. We're trying to get to plan A all the time. Like plan A is where the good stuff happens, right? But we want our players to have the tools in plan B, C, and D in order to also shoot under par.
A lot of your tour players, so LPGA tour players, PGA tour players, they have a lot of great cadence in their swings from week to week. With juniors, is there any drill or what cadence or rhythm/tempo you like in the swing? How do you teach that?
The question is whether I teach a cadence to the swing with juniors. My son's 12 right now. I don't know if he's going to be any good. I just want him to enjoy the game. It's the only thing that's important to me. I really don't care if he's any good. I'll be perfectly honest. Like, golf can't be something that gets in the way of our relationship. It needs to be something that brings us together. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. But I want him and his buddies to hit it as hard as they can. Now that means that they're going to be losing their balance. They're going to be off their feet. Like, I can put it back together, right? If you bring me a player who hits it miles, this guy kinda, right? Hits it miles, and it's all over the place. It's so easy to get them to hit it straight, so easy, right? But to get someone to hit it really far who hits it straight, it's really difficult. So the cadence is not something I've really thought about a whole lot. Having said that, I was teaching a group of those kids the other day, and in their tournament warm-up, I would run through the leapfrog, I would run through the clock system. This is what I was telling them to do in a tournament warm-up. Leapfrog, clock system, and then the third thing I wanted them to do was go to their 8-iron and find a rhythm for the day, right? So full swing as much as they could with a balanced finish. Rory's just so pretty to watch, but it's so fast and so balanced. Like, I want them to find that full speed with their balance point, and then that would be their cadence. Does that answer your question? Yes, sir.
Do you have like a post-round absolutes with your players, or and what's your communication like, with your players? After?
Great question. So the question was, do I have post-round? So post-round analysis. So I do have a stat system that I want my players to use, and then I want them to have a post-round routine where they would write down what they thought they did well, and then what they learned, same as the post-shot routine, right? What they did well, what they gain confidence from, and what do they learn? And then from there, what's your plan in order to practice going forward, right? So I didn't really get a chance to get into all that stuff today, but you can see I'm very, very, I don't want to say type A. I joke with my players, I'm a dictator, but I am, right? I want them doing it exactly how I want them to do it. And part of that would be a post-round routine. My failing as a coach is I've just got too many players and I can't be accountable for them. Like, that's just flat honest. Like, I wish I could be an incredible coach to everybody that I see. I just, like everybody else here, just don't have time.
What would be a good routine for the A, B, and C to decide what you brought to the course that day?
Yeah, so basically I would have them, this is great, now we're getting to tournament warm-up, so leapfrog, clock system, find the cadence, then go through your shots, right? So I would have them full mental process, how's my draw, how's my fade, how's my flighted? What do I have for that day? If I've got them all, I'm going at that first pin on the first hole. If I don't have my draw and I've only got fade, probably tells you a lot about where your golf swing's at, right? If your miss is pretty big and you're not hitting good on the range, you must change how you approach the first few holes, right? If you're blocking at 40 yards and you get up on the first hole and there's water on the right of the green, like, you got to aim 40 yards left. You have to.
How soon within, 5 balls with your 7? Is there any specific routine to teach your guys as far as digging out what they brought?
Not really specific number, but I do want them to basically run through that process of draw, fade, and flighted. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great job today, Phil.
Thanks a lot. Am I okay?
Yeah, you good.
Can I
Want
ask
to take one more?
Yep, sure, one more. Chris, you mentioned that one of your preferences is width.
Yes.
What do you like to do with people that get too narrow on the way down?
My question to you would be, is the narrowness affecting the plane line and affecting the angle of attack to therefore affect the flight of the ball?
Yes.
Then I get sent all this swing guide stuff, not particularly the swing guide, but all the swing bits and bobs. I don't really use any of that stuff, but I do have one thing that I use a lot, which is it's the elastic, I'm forgetting the name now. It's the elastic band, gravity fit, right? And I have them really push away, right? And then feel the same width on the downswing. I really like teeing it up like that, because again, if they get narrow, they're not going to be able to hit it. But I love the gravity fit. It's basically the only thing that I would use in my lessons.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, mate.